Tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is if you feel like nothing is working, understand that that's how it's supposed to feel. That's exactly what is supposed to be happening right now. And before I get into this, first of all, let me tell everybody I have a daily motivation text message I send out free of charge to everyone who's in my text community, guaranteed to keep you focused, sharp, and on point. That message, that is. If you want to receive that, all you got to do is text me at my number, which is 305-384-6894. And every day when I send out the daily motivation, because you are in my text community, you will be receiving that message. You can even respond to any of those messages and get a response from me, because I go through my text and respond to those every day. Now, the topic. If you feel like nothing is working, that's how it's supposed to be. The purpose of this masterclass is for you to understand that the challenges and the rough times and those third days, those situations where you realize that the thing you signed up for is not all fun and games. There's actually going to be some real work. There's going to be some real challenges to it, a real grind that goes into it. I want you to understand that all of that is part of your process, is not a reason for alarm. So when you find yourself on those days where it's like, man, this is a lot of work today, this is rough today, this is harder than I thought it was going to be, that's supposed to happen. Okay, that's not an aberration. That's exactly how it's supposed to go. So let's get into it so you understand it. Point number one. Topic again is if you feel like nothing's working, that's how it's supposed to be. First of all, let's remember the 10-to-1 rule, which you might not even remember, but let me tell you what it is. Back in my basketball playing days, I used to, for those who don't know, I used to put all these basketball videos on YouTube. That's how I originally, put myself out there on the internet. And I would show myself in a gym just practicing on my own. That's what the majority of my videos were. And all those videos are still on YouTube. You go look them up. And some players would sometimes ask me, Dre, how often do you practice? Because it seemed like I was practicing every day. I literally was practicing every day. I would even practice on days when I had games. I would practice in the morning and play the games in the evenings. And I told players that I had at least, at minimum, a 10-to-1 ratio for how often I practiced versus how often I played in games. And I'm talking about any kind of game. I don't care if it was playing one-on-one with some random bum who stumbled into the gym, a 3-on-3 game at the park, a 5-on-5 pickup game, a recreational league game, or a professional basketball game. I had a 10-to-1 ratio of practices to games at minimum as a basketball player. There are some places that I played professionally overseas in Europe where we would have a game once a week, but then we would practice twice a day the other days of the week. So you do the math on that. As a professional athlete, that was my ratio, at least 10-to-1. It was probably higher than that. I spent a lot more time practicing alone in empty gyms or and not just counting basketball court practice, but also conditioning workouts, functional training workouts with a trainer, and weightlifting workouts in the weight room. I spent a lot more time in those gyms doing those workouts with no fanfare, no appreciation, than I did playing in games in front of fans with no cameras and getting attention for it. The point is, for all of you, as a professional of what you do, most of your work is going to be unappreciated, unheralded, and uncelebrated. And is going to, for the most part, be unseen. Every day is not going to be some kind of parade honoring you for all the work that you've done and how great you are. Your job is to show up, do your work, clock out, and go home. That is your job, and that's the way it works. And here's the other thing. Nobody cares that you did that. Nobody cares that you showed up and did the work. This is the job of the professional. Most of what you do is unseen, unknown about, and you still got to do it. Because if you don't do it, then you won't be prepared for the opportunities when everybody is watching. Point number two. Today's topic again is if you feel like nothing's working, that's how it's supposed to be. Number two, when you feel that you're doing all the work and getting nothing back in exchange for it, that's how it's supposed to be. What we call this is the third day. It's the subject of my latest book, at least as of this recording. If you don't have this book, it is right here. It's called The Third Day: The Decision That Separates the Pros from the Amateurs. You can get this book for free. All I ask that you cover the shipping by going to thirddaybook.com. The link to that is down in the description to this episode. Again, thirddaybook.com, all spelled out. But what is the third day about? Well, let's think about it. The first day that you show up to any new thing, let's say you join the gym, or let's say you got a new job, or you started a new hobby. The first day, you're all excited. You got yourself a new puppy. You're all excited the first day, right? You got a new baby. You're all excited. Everything's going good. I'm so excited to have this new thing in my life, whatever the situation, person, place, whatever in your life. You're excited the first day. The second day, a little bit less excited, but you're still pretty excited. It still has that the new thing you're doing still has that new car smell, so to speak. And by the third day, you're realizing, like, damn, oh, this is actually not one big party. This is actually some work. This is actually going to be a grind. This is actually going to be some tough days in this thing that I signed up for here, and is not going to be as easy as it seemed on the first day. That's what the third day is about. And the third day is not necessarily the moment when you realize it. The third day is a decision that you make as to whether you're going to keep showing up and doing the job as you're supposed to, or are you going to abdicate that responsibility and be an amateur and not show up all the way, or quit from the thing that you signed up for. That's what the third day is about. So if you don't have that book, then go get it by going to thirddaybook.com. Again, the book's free. Just cover a small shipping charge. I'll send it to you, a physical book. So you got to go through a lot of third days, folks, to get to the celebration days. The days when you get recognized for your work and everybody's telling you how great you are and they want to know your story of how you did it. You don't get to that until you go through a bunch of third days. Understand the thing about your story. Every human being on this planet has a story. The thing is, only a select few people ever get asked to tell their story. Everybody wants to tell their story, but only a few people have audiences of people who actually want to hear your story. If you want people to want to hear your story, guess what you have to do? You got to go through a bunch of third days and create a certain amount of success, a certain amount of outcomes, so that the people can recognize that you created these outcomes. Then they want to hear your story. They don't want to hear your story just because you have one, because everybody has a story. So why does somebody need to hear yours? They can listen to their own story. Why do they need to listen to yours? They don't. So remember that the celebration days, the outcomes, the rewards, the attention come after going through a bunch of third days. And it may be this 10-to-1 ratio. All right, 10 practices to 1 game, as I told you. And it's the same way in every business. It's the same way in relationships. It's the same way in sports. I'm sharing this so that you have the proper expectations set. Because some people come into the game with the wrong expectations and they start following inaccurate formulas. And then when you're not getting the outcomes that you expected, you start thinking something's wrong with the thing you signed up for, something's wrong with you, something's wrong with your process. No, nothing's wrong at all. It's just you had the wrong formula. Somebody gave you an improper expectation. So you're expecting to get a celebration or a pat on the back every time you come to work, when that's not how it goes. Even when you feel like you're doing your job and things are not clicking the way that they're supposed to, understand this is part of the process of getting to the part when things are working. All right, just like in the sales world, any of you who's in sales, you know that every time somebody tells you no, you're just getting closer to somebody telling you yes. But you got to go through all the no's in order to get to the yes. I mentioned Robert G. Allen in his book, Creating Wealth. I mentioned it in yesterday's episode, mentioned it again today. He talks about this because his book was framed around the concept of real estate and how you can get real estate and own it free and clear without having to put any money down. That was his major claim to fame when he wrote this book. And one of the things that he talked about is that when you're looking through the classifieds and you're calling all these people and trying to get the kind of deal that you want to get, you're going to get a bunch of people hang up on you. You're going to have a bunch of people not answer, a bunch of people not call you back, a bunch of deals are going to fall through. But every time somebody tells you no, first of all, you're getting closer to a yes. And second of all, you're getting calloused. In other words, you're becoming more desensitized to somebody telling you no. And it doesn't bother you as much the more you hear it, because you hear it so often that it just rolls off your back and you're not devastated just because somebody tells you no. You're not taking it personal. You're not emotionally triggered or traumatized by the fact that somebody said no. And eventually you start getting to those yeses and the no's just roll off your back. There's the same thing here. Every time you go through that third day, every time you go through that, you felt like you did all this work, but you're not getting recognized. You're not getting the results. You're not getting the outcomes you want. So what? You just keep showing up and doing the work. This is literally the job of a professional. And all the professionals who are listening to me right now, you know I'm describing your work. I'm describing your everyday life right now. All right. Most of the time, you're not getting a trophy, a celebration, a handshake, a round of applause, or any kind of certificate just because you showed up and did your job, even though you did a great job, because nobody gives a damn. You got to keep showing up anyway and doing it on the third days. And this is the reason why they pay you because you show up and do the job every day, even though there is no celebration. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is when you feel like nothing is working that's exactly the way it's supposed to be. Here's the point. Here's the key. The key is for you to keep going. That's the key. Just keep going. This is the discipline, the professionalism, the persistence, the perseverance. That is what this is all about. It sounds like a very simple idea, right? Be disciplined, show up every day, do the work, like I say here at the top of every masterclass episode. Professionalism, showing up and doing the job of a professional and being consistent in your work and people knowing what they're going to get from you and you delivering it every time. Persistence, continuing to show up despite hardships, despite challenges, despite things not going the way that you want them to go. Perseverance, keep going even though you face situations that are not going the way that you always want them to go. These things sound pretty simple, right? They're very simple ideas, almost to the point where I might feel like I don't even need to include these in the points in this episode of this masterclass, but I include them anyway because I notice how many people don't have persistence. I notice how many people lack discipline. I notice how many people fail to follow through. I notice how many people are not good at continually showing up and doing the work in the things that they even say that they want to be successful at. And I'm talking about some people who are listening to me right now. You say you want to be successful at this thing, yet you're not continually showing up and doing the work. You are not persisting. You are not following through on your disciplines. You are not following your own plans. And the things that you said you were going to do, you're not even doing them, even though you said you want to be successful at this. Napoleon Hill talked about this in The Law of Success, one of my top 5 favorite books. He said, if your first plan is not working, replace that plan with a new plan, and then another, until you find a plan that does work. And many people meet with failure in life because of their simple lack of persistence in continually changing their plan and altering their plan until they find a plan that does produce the desired result. So when things are not working in your favor, your job is to make sure that you continue working. So if things are not working, that doesn't mean you stop working. See, if your plan is not working, that doesn't mean you stop. That means you work on the plan until you find a plan that works. Until you find the thing that produces the result that you want, you keep working. Simple as that. And if there's any human on the planet who has achieved the result that you wish to achieve, that means there is a process that can produce this result. And that doesn't mean you have it right now. You might need to, again, you might need to change. You might need to do something different. You might need to find a different approach. But it is doable because somebody else has done it. And it may mean you need to make a qualitative change in what you're doing. In other words, completely changing your approach rather than a quantitative change, meaning let me do more or less, harder or stronger. That's the way that many people try to make changes in life because it keeps you within your comfort zone. Let me just do more of what I'm already doing or less of what I'm already doing. Those quantitative changes usually don't produce breakthrough results in life. They can get you marginal results. In other words, you can marginally improve. You can get a little bit better by doing more of the same thing that you're already doing. But qualitative change is going to completely change the landscape of the kind of results you're doing, maybe change the landscape of the work that you're doing. So this is all part of the game. So let's recap today's class, which is when you feel like nothing is working, understand that is how it's supposed to be. Eventually something's going to work, but it's not always going to feel like things are working. So this is all about you understanding the challenges, that the rough times you go through are not a reason for alarm, but it's simply part of the process. Number 1, the 10-to-1 ratio rule. As a professional athlete, my practice to games ratio was 10-to-1. 10 practice sessions for every 1 game that I played in, and it was usually more than that. It was usually more practice than that, and I'm being generous when I say 10-to-1. Understand, as a professional, most of your work is going to be unappreciated, unnoticed, uncelebrated, unheralded. Every day is not going to be some parade honoring you for all your hard work. All right, your job is just to show up, do your work, clock out, and go home, and nobody cares. Point number 2, when you feel like you're doing all the work and getting nothing back from it, that's pretty much how it's supposed to be. We call this the 3rd day. I'm sharing this so that your expectations are properly set and you're not expecting to get a celebration just because you showed up and did your job. All right, nobody cares if you showed up and did your job. That's what they pay you for. They pay you to show up and do your job. You don't get anything else other than a paycheck for showing up and doing your job. But you have to keep working even though you're going to have some days where you don't even feel like doing the job. This is what a professional is. And again, this is why they pay you. Number 3, the key for you is to keep going. This is the discipline, the professionalism, the persistence, the perseverance. This all sounds very simple, and they are actually very simple ideas, but many people don't follow through on these ideas simply because they don't have these tools. Like Napoleon Hill said, one of the major causes for failure for people in life is not a lack of information or access or opportunity. Those are the usual excuses that people like to lay out. The major reason for people's failure is their lack of discipline and their lack of persistence in finding new plans when their current plan is not working. This is why many people meet with failure, because they simply do not persist and they don't have the discipline, the mental toughness to understand that they are going through what we call the third day, and it's supposed to feel like that. It's supposed to be frustrating. It's supposed to be hard. You're supposed to have long days. When you have these days, understand your job is to just get through them. Your job is to get through them and get to the next day. That is the job. That's the deal. That's the game. All that said, text me to get my daily motivation text free of charge to your phone every morning. My number is 305-384-6894. And get into my Work on Your Game system. That is the place where you can get coached directly by me, or I'll show you how to implement the Work on Your Game system that shows you how to build your game, put your game out into the world, and collect the ROI, the return on investment from the game that you're putting out into the world. And the process for doing it is a 9-step process: discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative, mindset, strategy, accountability, execution, and communication. That's all at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all